Oh, all right, brother. Are you there?
Yeah, bro.
Oh, you got your coffee?
Yeah, man, all done.
How do you take your coffee, bro?
Cream and no sugar.
Ooh, okay.
You fancy guy.
Oh, I reckon, bro, you've changed, mate. Tupac changes. .mp3. Anyway, my brother. So, welcome, bro. So, for those that don't know you, man, who are you, brother? Don't be humble about this either. Please don't.
Oh, yeah. So my name is Raymond Sagapolutele. As per the handle, Mr. Rimoni TMD, part of the TMD Graffiti Collective. Proud citizen of Monredewa, and all that entails.
Oh, that's yeah. And so a photographer, right? Is that your main
Yep.
thing?
Yep.
And I
Yep.
mean, because I would consider you like a creative. Like, do you consider yourself that, or is it just?
Yeah, I guess so. A lot of us who are kind of multidisciplinary, nice word there. Photography is sort of like where my creative bend is at the moment. Well, at the moment, it's like the last almost 20 years. But prior to that, I was an illustrator and yeah, a bit of a to with everything.
I think that's how a lot of us out, like a lot of kids out south. As soon as they kind of, well, not just out south, but I mean kids in general. As soon as they have a little tutu of some stuff, then it's like, oh, I really like this and I really like that, and they kind of put their heart and soul into it, and they get passionate about things. Was that like you growing up in South, bro?
Yeah, pretty much. It's I guess it's one of the reasons that like for a lot of us, something like hip hop became sort of central to who we were, coming up because it didn't require much. Um, if you could string some rhymes together, if you knew how to scribble on a wall, if your parents weren't watching, dance, whatever, it was just one of those things that was an outlet for creativity. So yeah, out south and pretty much anywhere where there's a lot of those of us who don't exactly um, look at being, I guess, on the wealthier side of things, we improvise. Growing up in Manarewa, one of the things that we we kind of loved doing was come organic time, see what you could find to build whatever you needed to get around on. As a kid, riding around on bikes made from everything but what the original bike was kind of a thing. And don't even ask about the skateboards.
But the skateboards were I was about to say, I was a skateboard guy. I was that skateboard kid that had all the stuff from the organics, and I would just make me like, you know what the thing that was Cool Runnings. Remember Cool Runnings? At the start of Cool
Yeah, bro.
Runnings, and he had the box car, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna make me one of these, yo. And I had my little skateboards, G. Oh, fuck, I remember rolling down Mapleston Drive, my bro, just going hard,
Oh
and
man.
because Mapleston is steep as fuck.
Yeah, bro.
Anyway, yeah, I always remember, bro,
We did
and
the
yeah, bro.
yeah, we did the like built a skateboard. The trucks were made from like roller skates that we'd found, and we learned real fast. This going up to the gardens, the Botanic Gardens, and then like hooning back down Hill Road, and figuring out speed wobbles were not good on cheap sort of skateboards because the wheels literally come off. And on that bend, you aim for the grass.
Oh man, hard. And even when it's when you come to the intersections, there you just get off. You're like, oh shit. And where all is gone. Man, I used to bring back some days. And organics was the best, man. Especially when you're making like a tree hut or like some kind of house outside. I used to go hard.
Oh, it's weird though because as a kid you're like, man, this is the best adventure time ever. But as you get older and like you become one of the grumpier older ones, like driving around going, I can't see anything because there's just mountains of rubbish.
Yeah.
I mean, at one point, I remember Roscommon Road, they've got that strip of grass that runs up the center of
Bro,
Roscommon Road,
everybody
and
dropped their
like
stuff.
it was like, I don't know where all this stuff came from. They must like take it out from one house and then the next house takes it and then they put it out the next year and it just gets passed along. And I think it got so bad they ended up putting up fencing along the whole stretch of the road to discourage people from putting that everything out there. It was insane.
Well, they don't have them anymore, right? Like organics is finished. They kind of do, but you have to ring up.
Kind of. You got to organize it now with the council,
Yeah.
and they like you have like a cubic meter that you can chuck out, and it's like a cubic meter. Nah, a bit more than that. I'm gonna sprinkle it over other people's collections around the neighborhood.
But the
Not that
funniest
I'd
is
ever do that.
the funniest is the guys with the trailers that just go around all day just looking for old copper. That's what I reckon it was, looking for their copper, and it's like, oh man, and the TVs and things like that, old TVs, man.
Yeah. If anyone looking for metal, I mean, we one year because we stay out in Clendon now. So originally, our family was a Hormai family. Russell Road was where we all grew up, and then as we kind of moved on, moved out to Friedlanders, and then I'm the last one in Manarewa. Everybody else is taken off. But keeping it real out in Clendon way.
Clendon is my home, man. I spent pretty much from 5 to around 23 living in Clendon, and then I moved. I'm just out Russell Road now, so it's yeah, bro.
Oh, true.
Yeah, brother. I'm never leaving. I've
gone into your old hood, and you've gone into mine.
Yeah, we've done this. Bro, here's the story, brother. I moved into Wattle Downs, brother, and
true.
Bro, no, hold on, wait. Okay, I moved down. Don't judge, okay, brother. Okay, we all have those aspirations, okay, of moving out. So the people that don't know, Wattle Downs is this little kind of like peninsula that like is one way in, one way out, and it's all the white people live down there. Not all the white people, but a lot of the white people. I moved down there, man, and I was just like, what the fuck is this shit? Like, where do I live here? And then I had to move out, man. Our house got too. I was just like, nah. No pit bulls. You can leave your shoes outside. You'll be fine. You didn't have to use your dryer all the time. Like you can put your clothes out on the clothesline and you come back and it's still there. Oh man.
Oh. Manurewa is one of those suburbs that's got a mix of everything. So you've got like Wattle Downs, and then up on Hill Road you've got the gardens, Dark Gardens. But in between you've got everybody else. And growing up here, living in Hormai, we've seen it changed. I mean, I've been here since our family moved up here in 1980. Originally we were down in the Waikato.
Oh.
And then moved up to Auckland, spent in Otara, and then Manurewa was home for us, and we saw the place change over time. I mean, I went to Manurewa High, and when I was there, you could count the number of islanders in the senior school on one hand. It was definitely a lot different back then. But I think at the same time, you get your loyalties here, and there are a lot of people who are, there's like Manurewa's got so many amazing creative people that live here now. Like from within the graffiti collective I'm part of, you've got Charles and Janine who live just down the road, and they do those massive bird murals all over the place, and they travel the world. That's their mahi. That's how they make a living. But not only them, we've got people who work in the performing arts that live here as well, that do quite a bit up at Nathan Homestead, which is sort of like being the hub for my creative sort of collective outside of TMD. And it's been interesting going up to there, because we'd always perceived that place growing up. Nathan Homestead was where, like a retirement home to it. That's how I saw it.
That's how I saw it too.
Yeah, but now it's they're trying to make trying to be a bit more inclusive of those of us down by the railway tracks. So it's got another name now. It's Puki Puki, which is supposed to connect it to the original iwi that were part of this area before the settlers and everybody else came in here. But it's that history and that sort of connection to Manurewa. It's sort of something that we're all kind of trying to get a grasp on. But yeah.
What primary schools did you go to? You don't mind me asking?
Clendon Park.
Oh, Clendon Park, and then Rewa Intermediate.
Right. Clendon Park, Rewa Intermediate, and then MH.
Bro, were you at Rewa Intermediate when Miss Deutsch was there, bro?
Yeah, but I think I managed to avoid her. You know, being the oldest brother in our family, the responsibility on especially when you're in a Samoan family, is you're supposed to be responsible. So I kept my nose clean and for the most part, but my brothers they got to have a bit of that slack that they could. Well, not that bad, but my younger brothers, let's just say they bounced around a bit, but at the same time, they managed to go into their own sort of like spheres and specialties. Two brothers were played for the Rua rugby.
Yep.
Um, for some reason I never really kind of found myself in rugby circles. Yeah, spent more time hanging out with guys going to bars and clubs.
Oh. Okay.
The 80s and 90s were an interesting time to go clubbing, bro.
Bro, what was that? Studio X, brother. Oh.
Oh, bro, Coliseum. Get it right. Get it right.
Oh, sorry, brother. Sorry. It used to be Studio X, right? That's what it used to be. It was that one with the the Wendy's is there now.
Yeah, Coliseum's on the other side. I think it's a church now, but back in the day, it was like it was the flash club to go to. But if you were like the sort of training grounds for a lot of us was the Forge out in Papakura.
Oh, I thought you were going to say
that was like
you were going to say Club Raro, brother.
Oosh. Oh, bro, no, that was the other way. You go Papakura way and you hang out at the Forge because they had those strippers cages.
Yeah, and then
not that I ever went in.
Oh, neither, brother.
I heard.
Yeah, same. I talked to my church pastor about it. Oh man, because I think I was in this class with your brother. I think I was in Mark's class.
Which one?
Mark. He was there, and then all of a sudden he was gone. I didn't see him again. And then,
my younger brother's an evil genius.
TV. Yeah,
evil genius.
And then he showed up on TV. I was like, wait a minute, that dude was in my class for like a week. Fucking hell. Oh shit. So yeah, bro. The reason I put up Miss Deutsch, bro, I was the opposite. I was in trouble all the time. But Miss Deutsch had a little place in her heart for old little Timmy, and she used to always let me just hang out in her classroom, and because she was in charge of the tuck shop, she was like, "Yo, yeah, what do you want? What do you want, boy?" And she was one of his choice. It's cool people like that. Like everybody knows Miss Deutsch, like. There's these awesome people in South Auckland, or in Manudua. Manudua is like, you actually brought that up around the creatives out of Manudua. Like, Charles is a legend, like, for real. Like, he is next level, like one of those dudes that you're just like, far out, man, where did this guy come from? And you're like, oh, yo, he's from the hood. And I'm like, really? And you don't know about them, eh? Like, when did you first meet him?
I met him probably would have been around 2000, and I met up with him through Benjamin, a friend of ours, mutual friend of ours, who actually was the brother to my wife's best friend, and she was like, "Oh, you should go hang out with this guy. He listens to that rubbish music you listen to." My wife is a munter. She's from the hard rock school of music, and when we first met, she really couldn't stand my hip hop stylings.
Okay.
Her loss, really, but she was with Ben. She said, "Oh, this guy listens to a lot of that rubbish you listen to, so you should go hang out with him." And like Benjamin and I hit it off, and at the time, he was like, "Oh, would introduce me to different guys who were part of the scene, the graffiti scene." So we went into town, and actually. I met Charles and Janine Diva at the same time, and they were at another friend of ours' place on Karangahape, and that was Askew. So that was my introduction to TMD, and then just hanging out with those guys, pretty much my training ground for my photography, other than what I was doing on the music side of things. Was these sort of like graffiti missions with a lot of those guys and documenting their sort of travels and what they got up to. I wasn't really what you would say what you would call a graffiti artist as such. I mean, I tagged when I was a kid, but I kind of broke the cardinal rule of don't tag in your hood if your parents know what you write.
Yeah.
And so I didn't so much tag as I used to just do these comic illustrations all over walls.
Wow.
And one of them my dad spotted on his walk home from work. So he spotted that. He came home. We had a discussion. I got a bit of a whacking around, and that was the end of my tagging career. But the desire to be in and around those guys. I mean, because I'm from that generation that saw Star Wars on TV, that long ago.
Yeah.
And as soon as that, was broadcast, it was game over. Everybody either wanted to be a b-boy or a writer, or try their hands at being an MC, or DJing. And I was definitely of the spray paint sort of fanatic. But, as I said, kind of didn't end up going down that road, but ended up part of a collective who are pretty incredible. I've traveled the world with them, um, you know, being all over the place, Miami, New York, over to Australia. It's been, one of those things. These kids from, the lower end, sort of like the shadier end of society, managing to make a career out of what they love as
Yo,
creatives.
that's mean, eh? Like, when you sit back and you put it like that, you just think, man, like it all started from a vivid, yo. Probably stolen from the art room. Like, like for real.
Oh,
And
bro,
it
when
takes you.
you were saying like Manuriwa High and like the teachers that were sort of influential. I did in our fourth form class as a result of Star Wars and everyone wanting to tag in that and do these bombings. Our art teacher actually went and put paper along all the walls in the class
Wow.
and let us put pieces up in the class using not spray paint, but we could sketch up what we wanted and then paint it on these walls. Um, and that was like, for us, that was a big thing, to be able to actually take something that was street and be able to do it in class.
Man,
So that was something that happened at high school.
it's crazy how more teachers don't think like that. Like they just think, that this is what the curriculum tells me to do, and I can't step outside of, step into their world, and then, but like it's teachers like that kind of inspire people, And you probably had
Teachers,
more than that, right? You've had more teachers.
yeah,
Yeah.
more teachers, but I guess that's kind of why it's important for those of us that have been there to sort of like Samoan Language Week. I'll use the word tautua, which means service. So you kind of give back, and you make sure that if you can help, you help. If someone asks you, how to do something, then um, don't be a ballhead about it. It doesn't hurt to help. So um, when it comes to what I do as a photographer, I'm more than happy to help anyone that has questions around what I do and if I can help and or how to sort of step into that field and try their hand at it. It's that sort of thing that you kind of like you just kind of pass it on, keep it going.
Yeah, speaking about that, like you spent some time in Invercargill with Johnny Peninsula. Is that right?
Peninsula, yeah,
Peninsula, yeah,
yep,
yeah. Because he's a stone sculptor, right? So was that kind of
yep.
like something that you wanted to pick up, or you were just like, no, just are you filming? How did that happen, bro? You just went down there for experience?
Well, I grew up down there.
Oh wow.
My mum, like years, like we left Ponsonby and moved down to Invercargill after she separated from my dad. And so I spent the first 5 years down in Invercargill, and I've always remembered my time down there. So when we moved back up to the North Island, it was like almost 30 years before I ever went back. And so Johnny Peninsula is my mum's brother.
Oh,
And he's just this amazing sculptor, Samoan sculptor, who's lived down there since the mid 60s. Um, and I just wanted to go down there and catch up with the family down there and try and remember, my time down in Riverton and Bluff and all that area. But in doing so, I also knew that he's an accomplished sculptor and stoneworker, and a lot of the materials he works with, he sources through local iwi. They have a great relationship, and they understand and respect him. But as time's gotten on, he's been sort of less able to work stone because of health issues and that. So I kind of, for the last few years, I've just been going down there to talk to him,
That's cool.
and learn as much off of him, and basically record and photograph his work.
Yeah.
But as far as working stone, bro, of all these sort of like artistic mediums that are out there, stone will punish you the most,
Wow.
because if you don't get it right, you don't get a chance to redo it. Like
Yeah.
you crack the rock and you make a mess, that's it. Um, the way my uncle puts it is, it's like, the stone will ask you to give it a face, and so you need to make sure that you give it the right face when you work it. Um, and being Samoan, we don't have a tradition of stoneworking, unlike our cousins here and those in Tonga and other parts of the Pacific. The Samoan side of things, as far as stoneworking, sort of dropped by the wayside. Not too sure why. He says there are different reasons, but he's sort of like tried to revive it himself. And in working stone, he bases his practice around a lot of our old myths and legends, which is tricky because not a lot of people remember them because of the church and colonization. So it's all this other world, that when you're a creative and you hear it, you're like, man, this is amazing. I need to hear more. I need to learn more. But the hard part is that for us, that generation is getting older, and a lot of them are passing on, and we're losing all of that knowledge, which is part of the reason I kind of made that push to go down and see him and record a lot of his stuff.
That's amazing, man. Like, like for you to have the foresight to go, hey, listen, like this guy's got so much to offer, and he needs a conduit to get from that the information from there to the younger generation, and like you're a perfect kind of a dude for that. That's great. Cheer,
It,
bro.
it, it, it's just one of those things, though. I mean, what you do and what everything we do now will become something that's important to someone in 20 years' time.
Yeah.
And I guess it's remembering to sort of like catch those moments, and like, even if it's a podcast, it's going to be something that someone will learn from. So as artists, I guess we're all just part of this continual discussion around who we are,
Yeah. Are you
one way or another.
sorry, brother. Are you like at all? Are you familiar with like Twitch? This the thing that I'm on at the moment. Any?
Nah,
Bro.
not really. I'm
I'm
still
gonna
getting my head around TikTok, bro.
I'm gonna educate you, brother, for a second. We have New Zealand, like it's like a gaming platform, and people game on it, but people don't. Like I don't anymore. I used to, but bro, there's
Yeah.
New Zealand's biggest, and I'm gonna say it now, and I'm gonna say it, the biggest New Zealand Twitch streamer. His name is Brox. It used to be, there used to be some of these other gamers, but what Brox does, he's a cover. He does whakairo on stream, and
Okay.
he's got 600,000 people, like followers, and he gets thousands of people. And like when he started off, like he hit me up and he was like, bro, I love games and I want to kind of do it. I was like, nah, stuff the games, bro. You need to pass it on. You'd love him, bro. But anyway, he always says he and he gets the same questions every time.
Yeah.
What are you using? Like all the time. And he sounds like the bro from Thor Ragnarok. What's his name again?
Taika.
No, yeah, but the character he played in there, yeah. So anyway, one of the questions he always gets asked, okay, is what happens if you make a mistake? And he says it all the time, and I love it when he says it. Korg, that's his name, Korg. So anyway, he says, what do you do if you make mistakes? And he said, I don't make mistakes, I just make adjustments. And I was like, oh, it hit me, bro. I'm like, damn, that's a great line, man. That's a great line. He is the man. But yeah, and that's the same with, that would be, but I suppose with Stone, it's a little bit different, right?
Yeah. It's, yeah. When I've looked at my uncle's work and had a look at his carving, he does this when he's finished with the stone. It's just the smoothest, most um, beautiful looking object. And when you hold something like a carving, any sort of artwork, you get a feeling off of it, and you cannot, there's I guess a wairua that you feel from the work. With stone, it's something different. And like my uncle would always kind of mock. He goes, at the end of the day, amongst all of you artists, my work will be here in 100,000 years.
It's true.
Your photos will have faded. Your paintings will have, rotted away. The music is probably forgotten, but the stone will be here forever. And I'm just like, oh, okay. I'll just bury this camera then, eh?
Yeah, he can flex. He can flex all he wants. He's telling the truth. Like it's so true.
Yeah, he gets crazy. Absolutely. So, and the proof is out there. We're finding these carvings all over Aotearoa and across the Pacific, and it's just like the thing that's missing, especially like say in Samoa now, you've got these star mounds that are being found, but a lot of I guess the protocol and oratory that's related to them, it's gone. So we don't know what they are. There's no one there to speak on their behalf anymore. There's just the rocks. And you've got that other example if you go across to the east and you go to the Moai, in Rapa Nui. Everybody's going, what are they? What do they mean? What do they stand for? Because the people that are their voices are gone. So yeah, it's one of those interesting sort of conversations to have, and it's another sort of reason to understand, like, why a lot of us who, especially those of us from indigenous cultures, it's important that when we put our work out, when we make these artworks or whatever we're working on, our voices and our words go with them. Because the last thing we want is 100 years from now, some bald head who had no clue but has read a book and has a funny idea about what it is, explaining who we are to someone else.
Yeah,
You know?
that's happened quite a lot though. I mean, in history, you know
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah. And photography, it's especially photography based around indigenous cultures, Maori, anyone from around the Pacific. If you go into archives, there's usually a label that says the name of the Palangi person that's in the photo. It'll be like Colonel Sanders, whatever it is, standing next to, and that person's someone important. But the label for them is either unknown or local native man, and it's like, that sucks.
Yeah, you're damn right. It's everywhere. Like in history, it's everywhere. I mean, look at Australia. Like Australia is. I mean, don't get me wrong. Our history is bad. Like Australia, Papua New Guinea, all of that, like island area there. Like like their history books and their verbal, even their like stories and myths. It's just kind of like used for toilet paper from people that have came over on the ships. It sucks.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's a it's a hard reality, but at the same time, there's a kind of an awakening amongst many of us, and a realization that not everything is based around what we were taught growing up, and the idea of um, being able to question and look outside of those sorts of I guess so like you and I coming up through school, every structure that was put in place for us is framed around the Pākehā or the Palangi world. But when we talk to our grandparents or we talk to our elders or family, they always tell us about the other world. And I guess it's a matter of trying to work out how to make both worlds, well, not make both worlds, but understand how to use bits of both to kind of ground yourself. And also, when you realize that, then you realize other cultures, they have just as an important role in the history of the world as well. So, like you say, with Australia, that's one of the oldest civilizations ever. And when you see and read and hear them talk about it, it makes sense, especially if you apply what as someone who is from the Moana, or someone who applies your indigenous sort of heritage. It kind of gives you another way of viewing who they are.
Yeah. Man, it's so good, eh? So we are like moving back to photography. When did you
Yeah.
when did you get, yeah, sorry, bro, I gotta weave us a check this and get it back on track. So like how did you start like with photography? Because bro, cameras are expensive, brother. And like I know that in the hood, bruv, it's kind of like, yo, like we don't have a lot of money for these kind of things. But school, like, did they kind of provide with that stuff?
Not really. I grew up in our family. We always had some sort of camera, nothing flash. Like it might just be one of those cheap disposables, or mum. I can't remember the name of the type of film. It's like these thin strips.
Yeah.
Was the type of negative. I'm not a technical photographer, so when it comes to technology, I tend to just kind of go as long as it works, I'm happy. But when I did take it more seriously, my wife and I had bought an SLR, which is a more serious camera, but we did put it on auto and just take photos and leave it at that. And then we decided that we'd actually go and do these night classes that we're doing out of Pakuranga. It was like 8 nights, I think, and you just learn the basics of developing film and understanding, how to use the camera properly. My wife kind of realized that was more of a thing for me, and she just said, "You may as well just use the camera and do what you want." And I just ran with it. But I was shooting film, and film's not something, it's faded. Everyone's gone digital, but back then when I was shooting film and learning how to develop, it was like a pretty amazing sort of journey for me. But doing that and playing around with the camera and trying to learn how to shoot things and constantly bugging people and trying to do these portraits, it in a roundabout sort of way introduced me to my first sort of editorial job, and that was because I'd shot Mark, and Mark at the time was doing his thing with the Decepticons. He rang me up and said, I need to get a publicity photo for Back to Basics. I don't. You remember that magazine?
Rip it up.
Back to Basics. It was
Back to
like the
base.
hip
Oh
hop
yeah,
mag.
yeah, yeah. And the 2 was like the
Yeah,
number 2. Was it the one?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So yeah, so he just hooked me up saying, I need this. Can you send those photos you took to the editor? The editor at the time was Phil DJ Severe,
Shout outs to Phil.
and and he just kind of went, "Oh, okay, you seem to be good at this. Would you like to do more work?" And that was kind of it. A couple months later, I was the staff photographer there, shooting all music gigs and whatever they needed to get done for the publication, and then it went on to when Back to Basics basically faded away, and Phil went over to rip it up and became
Yeah.
the editor there. He took me with him, and so that was my ticket into going to any concert I wanted. Well, any concert he wanted, and I would shoot them. I did that for nearly 10 years.
Because we talked a little bit about Phil in terms of because I had Nate on Wednesday, and yeah, we just like he's had his like he's the godfather of a lot of shit, eh? Like hip hop, he's top tier. Shoes, he's top tier. Being an editor of magazines and then My FM, he's been around, man. That dude is the
Bro,
king.
you do not want to take on his Jordan knowledge, eh? You will die.
I don't know, bro. I reckon I can. I'm up there. I'm up there. I
Oh,
reckon
bro,
I'll
nah,
give him a
Phil,
run. But no. He's the
nah,
man.
he was amazing to work for. He's basically no bullshit. Just this is what I want. Don't fuck it up, and make sure that everything's sorted. And all of that sort of training ground, doing that editorial concert photography, as well as doing the odd cover shoot for the magazine as well, is sort of like where I really honed my skills. That on the back of what I was doing with TMD, documenting what they were doing in their travels, and their walls that they were painting and all the rest of it, became part of me learning how to use the camera. As far as the gear goes, yeah, it is expensive, and it will chew up your bank balance.
Mm.
But generally, if you're gonna if you learn it, if you learn the basics, and you don't need a flash camera to start off with, you just need to get an understanding and then slowly build it up. But generally, most cameras will hold their value for a while, so you're not continually upgrading unless you're one of those guys who it's like, oh, the new Nikon D800G's just come out, and then next week is the new D800R. And you're like, oh, I got to buy that now. You get those guys too, but you're usually good with the stuff you start off with, and that's what I've done.
Those are all the gears, no ideas, guys, where they just get all the gears and have no ideas. Oh man,
yeah, pretty much. It's like you spot them a mile away. I've been in photo pits shooting concerts, and you've got to move fast when you're in there, because generally they only give you 3 songs to shoot, and that doesn't mean you take your time and you work out what you're doing. You're just like continually firing away. And I've seen photographers come into the pit and try to bring an assistant in, and it's like, nah, bro, your assistant's about to get bounced by security. Or guys try to set up a tripod, and I've seen the tripod fly out of the pit, and then the photographer not too long after it, because it's like, nah, that shit's just not going to work. So you've got to learn fast.
Well, it's kind of like, man, I didn't even know what one of those things looked like. Must just be heaps of people with just cameras just going hard.
It's funny though, because when I was doing it, yeah, it is like, people, oh man, it's mean. You've got into this gig, you're doing this concert. You don't have to pay, and you're at the front, and it's like, it seems that way, but at the end of the day, it's just a job.
Yeah.
You get there, it doesn't matter if you're shooting, the local, I guess, slam poetry, to shooting in a stadium, and it's someone like Metallica who've got like this gigantic setup, and you're in there running around trying to get shots of these guys. At the end of the day, you're not there to enjoy the music. You're there to actually get images, and if you don't get the images, then you're not going to be doing that job again. So yeah, it's like it's fun to a certain extent, but it's a job, and I'm glad I did it. I think when I eventually kind of stopped shooting them, I thought I'd get all FOMO and see concerts come up and kind of get the itch to kind of hit up promoters and try and get in there. But I think after the first year, I was like, nah, I'm good. Pretty much shot everyone I wanted to shoot, and there was one that I wanted to shoot, and I unfortunately I couldn't get there, and that was Grace Jones. That was the one that I regret missing.
Wow. Any who have you shot? I saw Kendrick. You've done Kendrick. I remember I saw like a little bit on your Insta. But is there anyone else?
Kendrick, J. Cole. Yeah, also Black Eyed Peas back in the days. Metallica. Who else? Nicki Minaj. Lady Gaga. That was surreal. But I think my favorite gigs were like some of the stuff I shot at Safari Lounge or Power Station. Just the small local ones. They're always, not good because the crowds are pretty amazing. A lot of stuff that used to happen at Zen and Foo. Ooh, damn.
Oh yeah. Well, opening the chest up now, brother. Let's keep going. let's. Why was Lady Gaga so interesting?
What's that?
Why was Lady Gaga so interesting, bro?
It's like she before I shot her for the gig that I shot her, she had been over, and she was the support act for the Pussycat Dolls.
Oh, okay.
So when she was over, there was no restrictions on the photographers that shot her then, and they could like shoot there at the front. She was just doing her thing, but then she blew up. So when I went to shoot her along with a few others, she had all these rules around what we couldn't do, and basically we got there and they were like, well, you can shoot one song, and you're going to shoot it at the back of the stadium. So luckily for me, I had a big lens, so that wasn't too much of an issue. But for a few others, I was sort of like, oh crap. But then when we went in, instead of doing the usual go to the front or go around the inside, they took us up the back of Vector, and they had this one sort of like row of seats where all the photographers, and I mean all of us, had to stand and try and get these shots from her all the way off the other end of the stadium.
Wow.
And they wouldn't let us in until the first note hit of her song. And then they opened the doors, rushed us all in. And so we're all like, got to get the shot. And you're like firing away. and then as soon as the last note hit on that song, security came through, knocked everyone's lenses down, and threw us all out.
What the fuck is
So
that
it's sort of
about?
like, damn,
Why?
that was her. That was her sort of like, flexing, I guess.
What a weird flex. Like, like,
Ah,
shit. I'd be like, nah. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's really strange.
so
Anyway,
some musicians won't even let us in. Like Bob Dylan won't let you shoot.
really, who
He's
wants to
notorious
see
for.
Bob Dylan? Some old white men? Let's be honest.
I think Prince was another one that was like
Oh,
when
okay,
he
that's a
was
bit different.
touring. He had his. I think he either had his own photographer or just there were no photos at all.
Well, okay, that's a bit different. That's Prince.
Yeah, it's Prince.
That's royalty. You can't fuck with Prince. But hey, Bob Dylan, you can tell him to go eat a dick. I'll be like, no, fuck you, Bob Dylan. We don't want to take photos of you anyway, Bob Dylan. Nobody even knows you anymore.
Oh,
Mate.
bro.
Oh, sheesh.
Yeah,
yeah.
All those stories from the pit. And before me, there've been other photographers. I'm not the first, and I won't be the last. But I think as things are changing, it's getting harder and harder to get in there because back in the day you had magazines that would be printing all of this stuff, and there's none of them around. Rip It Up's gone.
Yeah.
It's getting harder.
And everyone thinks they're a photographer on Instagram these days. Everyone's got the filters. Bro, check this filter out. Shut up.
Oh, go back to Duckface. That at least was funny.
Oh man, shit. Oh man. I've got a nice camera, but hey, I know I'm not like no fucking. I'm not on your level, but it's nice. Everybody kind of thinks, oh, look at this one. Check the white balance on this one, bruv. And you're like, yeah. Oh,
if anything, like the one bit of advice I always give photographers is just shoot, just keep shooting. It's the only way you're going to learn, and because it's a digital camera, you've got as much. You can shoot as much as you like. But if anything, it would be shoot as much as you like, but then get a feeling for what you like shooting, and then go down that road. If you end up shooting dogs, you like taking photos of your dogs, or then just keep trying, and then like you can sort of expand from that and do other stuff. But I shot anything and everything, and then kind of found my lane and stayed there.
Is there much Pacifica representation in photography?
There is actually.
Yeah.
There's always been a history of it, but the weird thing is, again, it goes back to schooling. I went back to Manurewa High to help out with one of the photography classes. I think it was showing my age now, it was their 7th form class, but it was year 13, I think.
Yeah.
I think that's what the cool kids call it.
That's
but
yeah.
They were just, I came in to talk to them about photography, and then I asked to have a look at the who they use as their role models, or who are the photographers that they look at. And when I looked at the list of photographers, I'm like, this is a predominantly multi-Pacifica class, and all of these photographers are either European or photographers that probably shoot stuff these kids don't relate to. So I kind of gave them a list of a few photographers I knew, like Lisa Rehana, Greg Semu, Yuki Gahara, Iwatia Tamua. There's they're out there, but there's just nothing in the curriculum that sort of guides these younger photographers towards them, so they can see people who shoot people that look like them, or who shoot things that they can relate to. And that sort of becomes sort of my thing in relation to, like I said before, that idea of tautau or service. It's like, well, go back and make sure these young guns have something of value that they can hold on to when they're wanting to go out and do this work. Give them examples of people who have done, the hard yards, who have done the mahi, who come from, their world. So, and I mean, we're always happy when we see, someone who's done really well. And like, I went to Frankfurt last year, and I was at their museum, and they gave me access to their archive. And in their archive, they had work by, Pacifica Māori artists. And I'm like, even these guys know.
Yeah, I was about to say that. Like, fucking hell. Like, if they know about it in Frankfurt, but they don't know about it in Manurewa, there's something not right there,
Oh, totally.
Man, this is interesting stuff, bro. Like, because I mean, from my perspective, like, and I suppose even to the general public, man. Like, photography is, kind of like I don't know, the kind of hidden art, I suppose, that people kind of don't really, I don't know, like glorify, I suppose, as somebody like a graffiti artist or a portrait or a portrait artist or something like that. So yeah, bro, like this is really interesting stuff.
Well, it's like you've got to look at the way. So I went off and went back to university. After dropping out back in '91, I went back and completed my master's last year and did it in visual arts, but using photography as sort of like the medium that was my where my foundation for my work. And in doing that, I also got more of an understanding around because to do the work, I needed to learn more about my heritage as a Samoan, and also then as someone who's from Moana, the Pacific, and that meant learning more about my heritage and understanding a lot of protocols around what it is that we do and why it informs our work. But in doing that, I kind of looked at photography because, like you were saying, photography is not what you would call a traditional art form for someone from the islands. The camera itself is something that you kind of associate with Western practices. But what I realize is that the camera can actually form part of what is important to us as people of the Pacific. It becomes part of our oratory, the way we tell stories. So from my perspective, the camera is sort of this method that we can use to chase time, literally chase time, catch memories. And then that becomes part of that story about who we are, and then that informs the artwork. But it's to get to that point, I had to learn everything else. I had to go back and talk to my elders and understand things around Samoan protocol to make that all click.
Yeah, that's great. That's cool, bro. Like, man. Yeah, but anyway, we'll get on to some. We've got to wrap this up, brother. I would love to come and talk to you some more, though. Like, bro, whenever
good,
bro, like, yeah, time restraints, brother. But man, I'm keen to get you back in, and we'll talk about some other stuff too. Bro, we'll just get you in this.
Man, if you ever want to learn how to use your camera, hit me up. You're only over on Russell Road, so we'll go out and do some shooting.
And like I know people that know you, and you probably know people that know me too, bro. We run in the same circles, my bro, and we just haven't crossed paths yet. But my mum is like the queen of Clinton. Everybody knows my mum, and she used to work with Mali Sala.
True.
My G Mali Sala at the police station. And so like man, Mali, I interviewed Mark Hunt, and just randomly he goes, no, the best league player that I've ever seen is this fella called Mali Sala. I was like, no, not bro, how do you know that dude? He's like, bro, I used to run with that dude. I was like, far out. Mark Hunt knows Mel? What the hell, man? And I've got a lot of friends.
Mel's a legend, eh? I saw he posted up some stuff on Facebook just around, doing his Yoda styles with the Samoan protocols and stuff. But, when it comes to that side of thing, he's one of the people I, kind of like take my hat off to and kind of humbly, bro.
and even me. And his wife was Rachel. She was my lecturer at uni, and I was like, man, she let a lot of things slide. I just got to put that out there. She was like, I know you, but hey, but even like the fire piece, bro. So like Chantal and all them, bro, I grew up with those kids. Like, Greg's my G. Greg's the only manager that I know that let me come into work fucking drunk and just keep working. I used to work down at the pools.
Real, bro.
At the pools. At the old pools on Russell. Yeah. Fuck, bro. Back in the day.
I see. Yeah. I catch up with Chantal every now and then. Like her partner, Terry.
He's a legend
works
too.
On my arm.
Wow,
bro. He's the man. He's been working on my arm, putting together a sleeve that we've kind of like just been constructing over the last 2 years.
Terry's the man. I used to coach Aniwa basketball. And he's the
small circles, bro.
Bro, Aniwa's the man too, bro. He's straight up killing it too. Like I saw him, bro. I see what he's doing, and because he's at Western Springs and with like breaking boundaries. I'm like, good on you, Aniwa. You're the man. Bro, another one you
Very,
might know
very
too,
talented
brother.
family.
Another one you might know that I know too is bro, I used to look after Tyler Jade, bro. Tyler Jade, I used to look after the rec center with Tanya. Tanya used to be my boss too. Tanya Bell. I see small
Yeah.
circles, brother. Look at that. And I used to tag up around
Oh
town
man,
too. Yeah,
that's just Manarewa for you, though, eh?
hard out.
It's a creative space.
Yeah. And that when you said that, I was like, as you talked, I was like, actually, there's so many really like successful creative people that I'm like, yeah, like, fuck yeah, you're actually really onto it with that one because there is that have done some great things around the world, not just in Manarewa. Yeah.
Totally, bro.
Cheer, brother. Well, anyway, we'll get into some quick fire questions, brother. All right, bro, what's the best bakery, bro, you've ever been to in your life?
I'm still at Clendon Bakery, bro.
Yeah, boy. Yeah, boy. Yo, even Nate Nauer said that, bro. Nate Nauer said that. We got a lot of. I'm doing a thing at the moment called Bakery Run, and I go to all these different bakeries, no shit, and I compare them to Clendon. Fuck, I'm like, nah,
But I
it's
mean,
not Clendon.
I'm talking old school days, coming back from the club hungry, trying to figure out what to do, park outside the bakery, wait for them to open, 2 pies and a bun, you're sorted.
Go and eat it through the old tunnels and go through the tunnels, do a quick little hit up, and then go out to go to school. Oh, not for you. You're MH, mate. You went the other way. You were waiting for the bus.
No.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, now Clendon Bakery is definitely the spot.
What's the go-to pie when you go to the bakery?
Oh, it's always been a potato top, eh?
Min's potato tops are a bit different, though, eh? Like they're like next level. All the other ones are quite but that one is. Yeah, I used to be potato top too. Moved on though. Moved on to the old steak and cheese. Yeah. What's the first piece of chicken you go for in the KFC?
Breast.
Yes, boy. Yeah. Everybody's been saying the fucking thighs, and I'm like, no. You get that breast, bro. You get the most chicken on this shit. You know?
Yeah, bro.
That's the one.
No bones getting in the way. You know.
know,
You got that one little jelly thing.
Yeah, and then maybe you'll have a tiny one, but you're good to go. What was the go-to cartoon, bro, growing up?
Oh, damn. Go-to cartoon. There's so many. Probably Transformers, eh?
Yeah, the OG ones.
Yeah. OG. Yeah.
Have you seen them?
And then like,
you go, bro.
what's that?
Have you seen the movie? The cartoon one?
You mean the one from 80, was it 80s, 88, 89?
So yeah, when Optimus
or are you
dies.
talking about the more recent one?
No.
Yeah, bro, it's like, yeah, they made a movie, I'm gonna go watch it. Oh damn, they killed everyone.
Bro, they killed him in like the first 20 minutes, and it's like, what the fuck am I watching? It was quite sad, man. It was a sad movie.
This is traumatizing.
Great soundtrack though. Great theme music. The theme for that shit is good. Hey, bro, what's the go-to Macca's order?
Oh man, I've when I was eating Macca's, it was like a double quarter pounder and another patty.
Hold up.
So it was the triple quarter pounder.
Damn, brother. I'm impressed. I could never do that. I could do the double, but I couldn't do the triple.
Oh, the triple was that was my thing, and then I discovered that you could do the same with the Angus, the Wicked Angus.
Bro, how much?
That was.
How much money are you dropping at McDonald's, brother?
Bro, this is you go to McDonald's. This is after you've been shooting at the clubs, doing whatever at 3 a.m, and you're hungry. That hits the spot. Of course, the bad side of it was I got up to about 145 kilos. So yeah, no more eating that at 3 a.m, eh?
Oh man, but it's the best. I think it's the best when it's at 3 o'clock in the morning, though. To be honest, because they've got to cook it.
Yeah, your taste buds, they're not fussy.
Yeah. What's on the Spotify playlist at the moment, bro? What do you listen to?
Oh, bro, I actually don't listen to a lot of music anymore, eh? If I do, it's all old school. I don't know. I think like the most recent thing I listened to, I couldn't actually tell you, eh?
Oh wow. Well, what kind of old school stuff you listen to?
Probably,
Some Motown stuff?
but a bit of Motown, some Marvin Gaye. What was I listening to just before? Grayson Hughes. Imagine that. But also threw in Public Enemy, NWA, De La Soul. You know, that era. Of course, when I went over to New York last year, I got hooked on watching the Wu-Tang series. So 36 Chambers came back out, and I had a whole new appreciation for that album after seeing, the American story version of the Wu-Tang
It's good,
sort
eh?
of thing going on there. So yeah.
It was fun, bro. I'm a huge Wu Tang fan. Like Wu Tang is my jam. And when that came out, I was like, man, look at all these fakes. Look at all these fake ass. I was listening to this shit when I was like 7, yo. I was listening. Oh man.
Just yeah, it was SQ that got me on. I said, watch this, and then go back and listen. And when I did, I was just like, all of a sudden, all of the lyrics were like, oh damn, that's what that relates to,
yeah, bro.
So yeah,
The stuff that America's doing at the moment is off the hook. Like I've always, and I know it's your brother, but bro, I've always held Mark up there, G. Like top 5 for me. New Zealand, not even New Zealand. Like bro, I listened to that Pride Rock shit, and I was like, fuck. This dude ain't never left the hood, yo. I know he's an Aussie, but he's killing that shit. And then he does the playlist things. He's doing like this playlist shit on on SoundCloud, and I'm like, holy fuck, this is the shit. And yeah, I just wanted to let you know that, bro. Bro, he's the man, yo. I fucking love that dude.
I mean, I can claim bias on this, but I've always considered him a bit of an evil genius. Growing up and him sort of listening to what his older brothers were listening to, but then kind of throwing in his own thing. He was the guy that, back in the day introduced me to Bone Thugs, and like, he's sitting there analyzing the whole album and then doing all of this other stuff, and being able, like when they produced Elimination and a lot of the beats off of that, he put together using shareware programs,
Wow.
And just like when you hear what he used to make it, most producers are like, you used what? It's like, but that's sort of part and parcel with quite a few of our MCs and a lot of our artists. It's like the talent and the drive is there. You just need to put them in front of something and watch them, just tear the place to pieces. If there's anything that we have an abundance of here, it's talent, raw talent, and just that creative flair. So with Mark, it was just one of those things where he, the first time I heard him battle, and that was at the factory, and like I can't even remember. We went along knowing that he's okay, but then when he actually got up and battled and completely changed the format, because prior to him getting up, it was a cipher. People were just freestyling, and then he got up and completely shredded, and everyone was like, whoop, switch, we need to do something else now. And that was just him, but a lot of that was based off of his drive.
Yeah, I mean,
So yeah,
bro, like, yeah, I always remember I ran this I had this basketball thing. There was a kid that passed away at one of my teams, and I did like this charity thing, and like I hadn't seen Mark for fucking years, bro. And then he was in it, and he came in, and he was like, fuck, I remember you. And I was like, oh shit, like that's my dude right there. And I was like, yo, bro, yeah. And then I hit him up with exactly what I told you. I was like, bro, you were in class, and then like the next week you were just not there anymore. And I was like, never mind. Never mind. He was, so I've always got mad props for the brother. He's the man.
Well, the thing that I've enjoyed about watching them and a few others is coming up through the 90s and doing what they were doing, they still paid homage to the guys that came before them. So there was that sort of passing of the baton, but he'd always you'd see Shea Fu and Caps and them around, and they're approachable guys, Cass and a lot of the guys from down on Welly, it's just that sort of I guess that thing that came about when you saw the summits,
Mm.
back in the early 2000s, and it was like, look at all of this talent that's just holding it down.
Hard. Yeah, brother.
That was amazing. So
That's cool. Good
in
times,
a
eh?
lot of ways, it wasn't just you had Phil and Askew, all these amazing talents who have gone on to build on from that foundation to do other things. So yeah.
Yeah, bro. Anyway, brother. Hey, where can people find like your all of your work and stuff like that online?
Oh, okay. So you can find I've got two websites. One is under my name, Raymond Sagapolutele.com. I'll flick you the URLs, and the other one is it's RimoniPhotography.com, which I've only just sort of been fiddling around with today to sort of sort out. But yeah, that's generally where I live. Or find me on Twitter where I'm being angry, or Facebook where I'm behaving myself.
Or on
Because my
LinkedIn when I'm
aunties read that one.
professional. I'm professional on LinkedIn though. All right, my brother. Thank you so much, eh?
All good, bro.
Cheer, bro. All right.